ghouls and goblins, spooks and creeps, our beloved fangs and infernos. It is conversation time. Let's talk about all things fun. Let's talk about creepy things. Let's talk about things relying to death, dying, and the dead. Myself, and of course our beloved Devil, you know how much we love talking about these things, and we couldn't think of any better person to bring in for some conversations than keeping it deathly. So, for the first time here on the Vampire and Devil podcast, won't be the last, but we got to start somewhere. We've got our beloved friend, the Living Dead drummer, has joined us for a little conversation. Nick Mason, our friend, our family. First and foremost, brother, thank you so much for a little bit of your time, man, and welcome to the Vampire and Devil podcast.
No problem. Thank you, guys. It's when you told me about this show you were doing, I was like, oh my God, we got to talk. It's going to be fun.
Absolutely, man, 100%. And so, Nick, you and I have talked before on my my side show as well about your career and fun stuff like that. But being that you're on this show for the first time, I think it'd be a very fun and pretty apropos place for you to start to fill in our Fangs and Infernos on exactly where the Living Dead drummer came from and how that name became a thing.
Oh yeah, okay. So some years back, I was doing a show. I was playing a show for Coffin Case, the guitar case company that makes coffin-shaped guitars or coffin-shaped guitar cases. This was their 20th anniversary, and they wanted to do something big and bold, and they wanted to celebrate the 20th anniversary in a pretty grand way. So they were doing something down at the NAMM show in January, and Johnny Coffin called me up, and he's like, "We're going big for the 20th anniversary. I want you to be a part of it." I said, "Great. Doing what?" I'm a drummer. You make guitar cases. How's this going to work? So we spitballed some ideas back and forth for a little while, and we came up with they used to do like a coffin fashion show. And they'd get, these goth and alt models and stuff like that to show up and do red carpet stuff and everything like that. And so they had this big concert at a venue down in Anaheim, and it was, I think, John 5 headlined, and it was LA Guns and Beasto Blanco, and I forget who else was on the bill, but it was a good bill. It was cool. And just before John 5 took the stage, they did the Coffin Case fashion show. And they had me on one side of the stage and a buddy of mine on the other side of the stage playing matching stand-up drum sets, flanking the runway. And the runway models would walk between our drums. And we had pre-recorded tracks, and it was all just metal. It was Pantera, and it was, Motorhead and all kinds of fun stuff. And we basically just played along to it kind of thing to give it a visual, but they had us dressed up in all this corpse paint and everything like that. They said specifically, we want it to look like you guys crawled out of a grave and up to your drum set.
Nice.
And so it was backstage at that show that the name got tossed around of Living Dead drummer, and the light bulb went off, and I went, "Oh my God, I love that. That's awesome." And I did some research afterwards, and those three words have never been put together before in that way. Living Dead something, Night of the Living Dead, whatever it is. That's been used every way, shape, and form. No one ever put drummer after it. So then I called the trademark office. And registered the domain and the screen names, and it changed all my social media handles over. I just loved it, and it helped differentiate me because, as you mentioned, my name is Nick Mason, and there happens to be another prominent drummer named Nick Mason, and this helped avoid confusion on the internet. Because there oftentimes I would get happy birthday wishes on the wrong day because it's his birthday and not that, or I'd get messages for him and stuff like that, because people seem to not look past a name and look at photos, where you could clearly see that, I'm 40 years younger than him. and not English. But so by changing all of my online presence over and not using my legal name, but just using an internet handle kind of thing, it helped kind of wedge a divide in there between me and him, which was nice because that was a uphill battle my entire life. So it was just a coincidence that we were both drummers and both had the same names. I've never met him. I didn't even know that coincidence existed until like high school. My hockey coach told me, and I was like, oh, wait a minute, what? There's another one of me out there. But it had been an uphill battle in my career, trying to differentiate and avoid confusion and stuff like that. And using another handle definitely helped with that.
I wonder if he got any messages like, "Hey, hey, do you want to do this spooky, scary, shit?" And he'd be like, "Who in the hell keeps on messaging me all this weird shit?"
I don't know. I can't imagine he would because he's much more well known.
Yeah.
He's much more prominent. I can't imagine there'd be too much confusion on his end. Probably more my end because he already had a 30-year career lead on me. So it is what it is.
No,
but
absolutely.
but that's where the name came from, and it just kind of stuck, and I liked it. I thought it was clever, and it played into the fact that I like spooky stuff and horror movies and everything else. So yeah, it was a good fit.
Absolutely, for sure, man. And so speaking of like, your music, of course, and spooky things and all that kind of stuff. Talk a little bit about what you're doing now. So like, you and I go back to when you played Baltimore, with Michael Grant and the Assassins, and of course, most recently you've been playing quite extensively with Pretty Boy Floyd, but you also have history with Rhythm Coffin, working with them, and Fleshkrieg, of course. So can you tell us a little bit of what you have going on right now?
Yeah. Currently, I'm playing. I've been for like the last year and a half, coming up on 2 years. I've been playing drums for Jason Charles Miller, who some people might remember from the band Godhead back in the early 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s, stuff like that. Big goth rock band. They were produced by Marilyn Manson and everything.
On the Queen of the Damned soundtrack.
Yeah,
they are.
They are.
Yes,
He's actually from the Baltimore, D.C. area, so all the
yes, he is. Yeah.
all the Furnos and Fangs from this area, pretty dominant, know who he is.
Yeah. So yeah, so he's got his solo stuff outside of Godhead that he does now, and it's much more southern rock. It's not gothy stuff. It's still pretty heavy. 3 guitar players on stage can make a pretty big wall of sound, and I'm definitely encouraged to hit my drums as hard as I can. So it's still a lot of fun. So I've been playing drums for him and touring with him for the last, like I said, coming up almost on 2 years. And that's the live end of it right now. Fleshkrieg has, they're not touring anymore, but they have material that's already been recorded that will be sprinkled and released and stuff like that. They released a couple new songs last year. I recorded drums on everything a while back, so it's all sitting and ready to fire off whenever they see fit, kind of thing. So that's going to get sprinkled out throughout this year, I guess. I'm not touring with Pretty Boy Floyd anymore. My tenure with them came to a close in November. So there's that. And actually, since then, I've actually started producing as well.
Nice.
Instead of, not just recording and playing live with people, but there's actually a younger, I say younger, it's not like the guys in the band are that young, but they're a newer band. They're called Bosterfeeden. And it's very post-punk goth rock, like think Bauhaus, kind of very inspired by Bauhaus. And they were, the singer recently relocated to California, and teamed up with a bass player, and they started working on some things, and then they were looking for a producer to help organize their live show. And I have a lot of experience running backing tracks and putting backing tracks, stuff like that for live use and everything like that. Good chunk of the groups that I've worked with over the years use tracks in a live setting in some way, shape, or form, whether it's very minimal or, more elaborate. So I offered to help them with that. And after one or two sessions in the studio together, kind of just taking some of the material they already had and sort of kind of helping organize it a little bit, getting prepared for the show, they were like, okay, we want you to do it all. We, not just, helping us get the live show, but we got new material we're working on. We want you to produce the record. So, and I really liked I listened to the first release that they had independently, and I really liked it. Like I said, very, very post-punk, goth rock stuff, which I really liked. And that's where we're at now. We've been working on new material, and there's no like set time frame on it kind of thing. Just as songs start to get more and more polished and start to get more put together, it goes into my hands, and we get together in my studio and just start hammering stuff out.
For sure.
Yeah.
And is there anything is there anything currently also going on with Rhythm Coffin? Because I know that you guys tend to really rock around, like, the Whiskey A Go Go, of course, around spooky season and stuff like that.
At the moment, no. Garrig, who's the Rhythm Coffin's his brainchild. I mean, he put the whole thing together, probably 15 years ago. He's fallen under some health concerns.
Okay.
And about a year and a half ish, 2 years ago maybe. And so we've been taking some time off so he can recover and get his strength back and stuff like that. He's had kind of an uphill battle for over a year. So right now, Rhythm Coffin's kind of just on a hiatus while he recovers.
Absolutely. Totally understand on that for sure. And we definitely, wish him continued recovery and all that stuff. Because I mean, all of those bands are awesome. I love some Rhythm Coffin. I actually have a poster on my wall for a show they did at the Whiskey A Go Go with Wednesday 13 and Michael Graves.
They anytime Wednesday plays the Whiskey, right? The first call has always been to the Rhythm Coffin to be the support band every time. And there's it's always a guaranteed sellout show, which is great, which is really cool. So the last time they did that was, I want to say it was October 2023, and I was actually out on tour with Fleischkrieg at the time, so I couldn't participate in that show. So they got their original drummer. He flew in to LA because the whole reason he departed the band in the first place is because he had moved out of state. He flew back in and subbed for me on that gig, which was really kind of cool because then it was like, oh my God, you have, 4/5 of the original lineup on stage kind of thing. And they opened for Wednesday at that show. And it was just the two of them. It was just Rhythm Coffin and Wednesday. I don't know if there was any other support bands or local bands or anything like that. And we knew going into that show that was going to be Garrick's last gig for a while. So it was sort of a send-off. And I was, like I said, I was out on the road, but my phone blew up that night from people that were at the show or watched a live stream of it online, just telling me how awesome they were.
Nice.
Which was really cool. I was laying in my bunk on the tour bus, and I was just scrolling through all the messages of like, oh my God, they killed it. It was so great. It was such an awesome show. And that it was nice to see that and have that for them, because knowing what I knew, that, okay, this is going to close the book on the band for a little while.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know how long the book is closed. but it did put a hard stop on things just because we had some songs and stuff like that that were in various stages of being finished. I know I tracked drums on a couple of songs that I don't think have been released yet. And it just sort of like put a hard pause on everything of like, okay, Garrick needs to undergo some procedures. He needs some treatment. He's going to need a lot of recovery time, so it was a really nice send off for them. And I wish I could have been there for it, but I'm glad that I'm glad that they had their original guy playing on stage with them in my place, because it made it that much more special for them.
Absolutely. 100%, Nick, for sure. So,
Yeah.
Devil, pick it up right after this one, because Nick got me thinking about something. So I want to ask him one more question in my segment, and then you go ahead and pick it right up, my friend. So, Nick, you were talking about, of course, the Rhythm Coffin being the first phone call for Wednesday 13. Myself and Devil are big Wednesday 13 fans. We have been for many, many years. I feel safe in assuming that you're fond of the band as well.
Oh, yeah.
With Mike being on drums now for the last few tours and doing a great job. We've seen him a couple of times, and I grew up a Wasp fan in general, so I love everything that Mike does. Were you ever in communications or phone calls at all for when that seat needed to be filled? Because I feel like that would be a gig of interest to you, or just kind of at least a curiosity for a short time to rock those songs and get to kind of play something like that. So in that little bit of time that the throne was unmanned, were you ever in talks or curious about the position?
I don't know. I was never directly in talks. I don't know if there was communication behind the scenes. I know all the guys in the band. I know when Wednesday's borrowed my drums for a couple of his music videos in the past. And that was way back before Mike was even playing with him. He drove over to my house and just loaded stuff out of my garage into the trunk of his car. So I know all those guys. We've toured together. Wednesday and Floyd toured together in Australia a couple years ago. Actually, Ashes, who was at the time Floyd's guitar player, is now playing for Wednesday.
Yep.
I talked to him last night. So we all kind of know each other. We're all on good terms. We're all buddies. Mike and I are buddies. I talk to him all the time. It's his gig, and I'm not the sort of person that's going to actively pursue a gig that's currently owned by a friend.
Of course.
Like I'm not going to do that out of respect. If he ever needed a fill-in or a sub, I would certainly be open to it if they were to call. They certainly all have my phone number, and whether discussions like that have happened internally between them that I'm not aware of, who knows? But I feel like they know they can always call me if they wanted to, kind of thing, or if they needed to, sort of thing. And I would be, schedule permitting, I'd be willing to help out. So,
Sure.
But I wouldn't actively pursue the gig just out of respect for Mike,
Oh, yeah. And for clarification to the Fangs and Infernos, and as well, of course, all the years that we've known each other, Nick, I absolutely know that you're not that guy, would never be that guy. It's more of a curiosity, like before Mike took over the gig, when they were kind of going through the transition time before choosing Mike, or it might even have been a quick phone call or something like that. I was more kind of curious if in between time before Mike became the guy, I never thought about it or had been contacted.
No, I hadn't been contacted before that, and I really didn't. I don't remember when he took that gig over. So, and I've known like Wednesday's last 3 drummers are all friends of mine. So I don't remember exactly when that switch happened. Sure. And it could have happened at a time that maybe I was super busy touring with somebody else at the time anyway, so it wouldn't have mattered. But prior to us all touring together in Australia, the only person in the band that I even knew was Wednesday. Sure. And he and I, we're friendly with each other, and we get along when we're together in public and stuff like that. But it's not like we're like super buddies, calling each other and texting each other all the time kind of thing. So I may not have been a thought at the time. I think the situation has changed since then, because now I know more of the guys in his band also. We've spent time on the road together now. As I said, Ashes is now playing guitar for him, and Ashes and I have been very close for the last 5 years. So I think that would be more of a situation that would happen now or in the future versus prior to Mike coming into the band. I think prior to Mike coming into the band, I probably wasn't in consideration for anything like that because I didn't really know anybody else in the band yet.
Sure.
Yeah.
No, definitely, for sure. Yeah, Devil, you might remember that transition a little bit clearer than I would, because I do remember you and I talking about, because Kyle was still drumming back when Wednesday was doing his like pandemic live streams, and
Okay.
I remember that you had reviewed Wednesday's live stream, and then it was pretty quick that I remember, Devil, you and I seeing Mike on the road with him, because we went to Mickey's Black Box. We saw them at, I believe, Baltimore Soundstage. I think there was a gig in there as well. And I want to say that you and I ended up at another place in Pennsylvania as well there, my friend.
Yeah. I mean, I'm pretty sure it was a pretty quick transition in between from the drummer to drummer. So, like I said, I'm pretty sure at that time, I'm pretty sure you were probably on tour with probably another band or something like that. So I would assume that. But yeah, I mean, that's what I was going to get into, even talking about Wednesday and stuff like that. With all the, you guys living in LA, you had all the fires. Wednesday was doing a video shoot that had a fire. And, those guys had to go basically into like,
I know.
panic mode and try to become firefighters and stuff like that. So I kind of wanted to, piggyback maybe off of that. Has there ever been anything, maybe not to that extreme or even more extreme, during a music video or anything like that you've ever had happen to you?
Nothing quite like that, where a fire breaks out, in the middle of the chaos that is fire everywhere. Nothing to that extreme that I can think of off the top of my head. No. Yeah, nothing like that. I've had some pretty wild happenings at like live events, where like, I played an outdoor festival one time that got shut down due to the winds, and there was concerns over the stages collapsing. And there was one time a few years back on tour in Germany, and they had to like tear gas a club.
Oh, jeez.
So I was upstairs watching one of the opening bands play, right? And our dressing room was downstairs, kind of thing. And there was some like drunk guy that was just stumbling around, and I think he like went into the women's bathroom, but then came back out, and then all of a sudden he's like wandered behind the merchandise tables, and they couldn't get him to leave, and they had to call security, and security couldn't get him to leave, and he was just being a drunk guy who was just clearly out of it, kind of deal. I didn't think too much of it, and I went downstairs and was hanging out in the green room. And then I see people through the doorway coming downstairs and leaving, right? And my first assumption is, oh, the band upstairs, they must be done. People are going outside for a smoke break before the next band goes on, kind of thing, right? And so I just kind of wandered outside, and I see that drunk guy standing in the middle of the road, and like cops are surrounding him in the street, and he's just being just belligerent and out of it, and the cops have them surrounded. The whole crowd is out on the streets. There's people out there with like full bottles of wine. They brought their drinks out. There's some guy leaning against our tour bus puking in the street, and it's still daylight out. And I'm like, what is happening right now? It was like complete chaos. And then someone told me, it's like, oh, well, they couldn't get this guy out of the club. They couldn't get him to leave. So they gassed the place. And we all had to come outside to wait until the gas settles before we can go back in. And I'm like, you got to be shitting me. You know what I mean? And like, and I still hadn't even gone on yet. Like, we were playing last, you know? I'm like, oh my God.
So you weren't even inside for the gassing. You just happened to go outside.
I was in the green room downstairs, and being that the venue was upstairs, they gassed the upstairs. You know, everyone had to evacuate and leave, and that was the only way they could get this guy out.
Yeah, I've been in one of those. I've been in that situation before. I was at the ICP gathering when they used to have it now they have it outside. When they first started doing it, the second year they did it in Toledo in this like little like convention place or whatever. It was the last day. They were like, hey, they're playing on stage. They're getting ready to drop one of their Joker cards. They're like, hey, everybody get on stage. Not realizing that everybody was literally bombarding that stage so much that the cops tear gassed that place. And we're all like basically putting freaking shirts over our faces and trying to like not breathe in that shit. And that shit is scary.
Yeah. Wow. I can't even imagine. No, thankfully I was downstairs. I wasn't a part of any of that. I just went outside to like, hey, did the band finish? Are you guys out having, is this what happens here? Is in between bands, everyone goes out for a smoke break kind of thing? And when I went outside, is when I was like, what's going on right now? The cops got this guy surrounded in the street. There's like, you know, it was crazy. Yeah, we were in, I don't remember what city we were in, but we were playing in Germany. I was on tour with this industrial band called V2A, and they're based out of England. One of the singers, they had two singers. One of the singers actually, she is German, but the rest of the band's English, and it's all industrial rock stuff, but very very kind of poppy. Like every song sounds like it should be on the Mortal Kombat soundtrack. And it was cool. I played with them for quite a few years before the pandemic, and I've like still talk to them all the time and stuff like that. But I haven't played with them since 2019, and I want to say this was maybe 2017 or 2018. We were on tour in Germany, and like, oh yeah, that was chaos. And like I said, it was daylight out, and I was like, this city rolls hard. Whatever town we're in, holy crap, sun's not even down yet.
I just think it's funny. You said everybody's still just like drinking their wine like it's just the regular Tuesday. Like, yeah, we just gotta wait for the air to clear.
A full bottle of wine, cigarette in one hand, and go drink, and they're just hanging. We're just waiting for the smoke to clear to go back in. One guy literally like had his hand up against like the front of our tour bus, and he's just puking his guts out into the street. And I'm like, what's going on right now? There's
the afternoon.
There's guys already partied out, you know, and the cops are tear gassing the venue and stuff like that. There's still like 2 more bands that have to play, or 3 more bands that have to play.
That's crazy, yeah. But in all seriousness, with the Living Dead drummer, so if you had to choose, you know, being a Living Dead drummer, and you were in the apocalypse, and you had to save yourself by jamming out on the drums, what kind of zombies do you think you would have a better chance with? The Night of the Living Dead slow kind of zombies, or maybe the fast-paced 28 days later kind of zombies, or maybe the punk rock versions of zombies like Return of the Living Dead?
Which ones have a better chance against?
Yeah, which one do you think you would have a better chance subduing with your drumming skills and being a Living Dead drummer?
I'm slow. I'm gonna go with slow, classic, you know, Night of the Living Dead zombies. They're gonna be easier to like. They're already slowed down. All right, they're gonna be easy to sedate, I think.
Yeah.
You know, Nice slow groove, good deep pocket. Just let them kind of sway in place a little bit, right?
Yeah, I
And
think that would work a little bit for you,
yeah, and
especially because, like I said, especially with Shaun, like, you look in Shaun of the Dead, where they're like, "Du-du-du-du-du-du," and the zombies, "Roar," where maybe if you did a tasty
see,
groove, they might sit out there and pull out some lighters or something.
right? They absolutely. I think they would be much more uh, locked into that sort of thing. I think the fast paced ones, you'd have to be playing like blast beats the whole time to match their heart rate, you know. So yeah, I'm gonna go slow zombies too. Plus, if it doesn't work and I gotta outrun them, I'm pretty good on my feet. I think I can outrun the slow ones. The 28 days later zombies, no way.
Mhm.
But
I'm
then, but then
not gonna
again,
survive
Oh,
that.
oh, come
but
on,
then
Devil.
again, they're
You couldn't see Nick just like rocking out with trash just up there, just jamming like right next to him, like just Linnea
yeah.
Quigleying out.
Yeah, that's what I was saying too. Plus, I mean, out of all the band, if you were playing during a zombie apocalypse, you know, other than probably the singer, you're probably the second person that might get killed, just because you got the drumsticks, you have like a small little space where I think the bassist and the guitarist are probably the best two options of surviving, just because they can swing those around a lot more. Where, like, like I said, a microphone's not going to do. Drumsticks are definitely going to do a lot more damage than a microphone is going to be against a horde of dead people. So I
Yeah,
mean,
but you
I
got to
think
get
so.
close to them. That's the problem. It's like this long.
Yeah.
I got way
I
too
mean,
close.
you could train throwing those things like fucking like ninja stars or some
I'd
shit.
I'd rather I'd rather have a bass guitar in that situation. It's bigger, it's heavier, it's longer. I can swing it like a bat, and I can keep the maximum amount of distance between me and what I'm swinging at.
Giant cymbal rack though, just whack.
Yeah,
Well, yeah, I mean, you got the cymbals. The cymbals, I mean, that's a good thing. You can just, undo those really quick and start using them to fling off some heads.
yeah. Frisbee it.
Yeah. Yes, but speaking of horror movies and stuff like that, obviously being the Living Dead drummer, what kind of horror movies did you like growing up as a kid? And then currently, what are your favorite type of horror movies or favorite horror movies of, like, ones that have come out within the last couple of years?
Um, I mean, growing up, I liked all the slasher films. The '80s slasher stuff. So your Jasons and your Freddys and stuff like that. Um, Anything that really, really scared me as a kid, I gravitated towards once I got a little bit older, kind of thing. So like Freddy terrified me, and I actually lived on Elm Street in my town.
Oh, man.
Like I was born and lived on Elm Street, and then that movie came out. you know,
You're like, Mom, we're moving.
so yeah. So I get to say, yeah, I was an Elm Street kid. Literally, I was an Elm Street kid. I lived on Elm Street. But Freddy terrified me as a kid, and it wasn't until like I had maybe seen like Dream Warriors was on TV one night or something like that, and I stayed up late and watched it when my dad was out. And like then I was like, okay, this isn't as scary as I thought. It's fun, you know. Same thing like Chucky. You just said the name Chucky, and I'd never seen the movie as a kid, but like the doll just scared the hell out of me, and now I love those movies. Um, the Jason movies I always liked. All the Friday the 13th movies I always liked all those. I like even the sequels to the Halloween movies. Like Halloween for me is like sacred, right? That's like the quintessential end all be all perfect horror movie is that original one. But I'm like that weirdo that likes the sequels that nobody else likes. So I enjoy 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Nice.
And then everything after that, I was kind of, I really haven't liked any of them. H2O was okay, but like when you go back and rewatch it, you're like, wow, this is dated. But everything after that, I haven't liked any of them. And it was like, well, people are like, oh, but the Thorn trilogy of 4, 5, and 6, oh, those are so terrible. I'm like, nah, I like those ones better. So yeah, I really just grew up loving the classic slasher movies and stuff like that. In terms of like recent stuff, things that have come out now, um, there's been a couple of surprising ones, and I'm going to be terrible and not remember some of the titles because I'm just really bad about that unless I've seen it multiple times. And most of these I've only seen just once. But like, I have Shudder, like I'm sure you guys do as well. So a lot of the time I will just go and kind of browse what they have new, read the description, watch a trailer, and just roll the dice. And there was one, and I forget the name of it all the time. There's one I watched probably last year over the summer or something that it it was formatted like a zombie apocalypse movie, right? Where it's spreading, it's infecting everything. You got to try to outrun it, kind of thing. But it wasn't zombies; it was demonic possession.
Okay.
To where this one guy in this one small village is infected,
Oh yeah,
and
I know
anybody
who you're
who,
talking
yeah,
about.
anybody who,
It was a Spanish film, I think. I think it was a Spanish film.
I don't remember. It might be right. I think it was called. I want to say it was called "When Evil Lurks" or "Where
Yeah,
Evil
when evil.
Lurks."
Yeah.
Yeah,
When evil
right.
lurks. Yep.
Right. So anybody that sort of kind of comes into contact with it, you know, then the possession spreads to them, you know, and it was really cool, and it was, about these two brothers, and the one guy's divorced, and he's trying to get his kids and his ex-wife like to leave town, kind of thing. um he's crazy and they don't know what's going on. It's just spreading. It's like wildfire. Like one person gets infected with this demonic possession and it leads to the next and it leads to the next, and it was really cool. It was really, really, really cool. And it was such a unique idea and concept that I was like, oh my God, this is great.
Yeah, it was really
So
graphic too. I mean, it was pretty brutal too, as far as like that movie. I mean, it was really, really freaking
mhm,
bloody and like a lot of things that you don't, the taboos of things you're not supposed to do in horror films. They did a lot of
mhm,
that with with animals
yep,
and kids and yeah,
yes, there was quite a few lines they crossed that, like, it yeah, like you said, taboo things that are normally kind of off limits or only maybe suggested or hinted at. They kind of were just like, no, this is going to happen. It would if this was real, this would happen, so here it is.
yeah.
And yeah, I really enjoyed that one. I might watch that one again. It was good.
Yeah, I think it's funny when you're talking about, with the Halloween ones. Like, yeah, I mean, like I said, Halloween one, like you said, is like the mecca of all
Mm-hmm.
things.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a huge fan of that. I'm probably one of the biggest nerds for Halloween 3. Like, I love Halloween
Oh yeah.
3. I
Oh,
mean, I like four, I like the fours and the fives and stuff like that
Mm-hmm.
because with Jamie, with the Jamie's character, Daniel Harris, and stuff like that. The storyline of those ones were, like you said, to me, a lot of people bitch about them compared to some of the newer ones, and I'm like, yeah, I didn't really quite understand the whole druid, kind of stuff. But I mean, it was still fun. But like I said, I mean, to me, the worst of the worst was definitely Resurrection with the Buster
Oh yeah.
Rhymes. Like,
That.
I'm like that. Even people who, I mean, even people who might not like Rob Zombie's versions, or even like the new ones that came out, the Halloween Ends and the Halloween,
Mhm.
all that good stuff like that, those ones still aren't as bad as Resurrection. Resurrection is like the essential of like, we're gonna take this franchise that's kind of big and we're gonna completely do something different and like completely just shit on a franchise.
Yeah, I agree that that one's probably scraping the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah.
I do love Halloween 3. Um, that one I really like, just I mean, it's a standalone movie. Forget that it's connected to anything. It's great. I love it. Um, it's still very John Carpenter vibes, and I'm a big fan of his movies. So it's still very much under the umbrella of that John Carpenter feel. Right after that is when they got away from that.
Yeah.
But I know like the druid thing was weird with like They leaned into it in Halloween 6, but I'm gonna make a case for it. Go back and rewatch Halloween 2. Right? There's a scene in Halloween 2 when Loomis and one of the cops they're scouring the neighborhood trying to track down Michael Myers, right? Not realizing that he's already at the hospital with Jamie Lee Curtis. And someone says that he was spotted in the school, and they go into the school and they find that on one of the, I don't remember if it was a classroom wall or chalkboard or something, written in blood, it says Samhain.
Yeah.
And they're like, what is that? And he says it's, ancient druid, their interpretation was very loose on it, kind of thing. They were like, oh, it's the druid sacrifice kind of thing, right? So they planted, and it's nothing. It's like a throwaway scene. You could cut it out of the movie and it would have made a difference. But that planted the seed that you then follow along through 4, 5, and 6. So they are cohesive with one another.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely makes sense. I mean, like, 'cause you were trying to figure out, how he would have escaped this, or how he would do that, and that kind of thing. It was just kind of just weird because, like, he had the tattoo that you never saw in any of the other movies, eventually, with that, and the mentioning of, like, him being able to, them being able to control him, and they're basically like the ones that are making him go after certain things and do certain things.
They thought they could control him. They
Yeah.
were wrong. They were wrong. They thought they could. That's the thing, is they thought they could, but they were wrong, and they found out by all getting killed.
But even with 6, like, I always tell everybody, I was like, yeah, I'm like, with that one, I always plead for a case of, like, of actors, being in these movies. And, everybody loves Paul Rudd. Paul Rudd is huge now. He's this big, huge, Marvel Studio, actor. But he's literally got my favorite scene of every Halloween movie ever. Even anything beating in the first movie. That's whenever he's trying to get the girl out of the room, and he's got the fire extinguisher, and he's breaking down the door, and he first sees Michael Myers, and he does this little twitch. That is like cinematic acting gold, because it's just like that post-traumatic from him being, he just remember being the little kid.
Yep.
All of a sudden being tortured by this guy. And, like, I always tell everybody, I was like, I don't care what anybody said. He should have gotten a freaking Oscar nomination just for that 2-second scene.
The problem was his acting through the rest of the movie.
Well, yeah, the rest of the movie might not have been as great, but
well, I think one of the other things too, when it came to Halloween, which is one of the reasons why those 4, 5, and 6 movies, while I like them as well, I'm totally with you guys on that I think made it a little bit difficult for, the Fangs to kind of, like, really grasp with them and stuff, is a lot of people forget or learned later that Halloween was never supposed to be a Michael Myers thing. It was supposed to be a series of about 5 movies that were all different, which is exactly why Halloween 3 is what it is. The first Halloween movie with Michael Myers is Halloween. The sudden success of that movie is what kind of spawned John to be like, okay, we can do a sequel for Halloween 2 and do Michael Myers again. Halloween 3 Season of the Witch was always going to be Halloween 3 Season of the Witch. It was always going to be its own thing.
Right.
But then the backlash that came in with everybody being like, wait, where's the guy? Like, what do you mean?
I think an anthology series with that under the title Halloween would have been fine. And I think they would have done okay with it. Where they fucked up was doing Halloween 2.
Right.
Because then all of a sudden it's like, oh no, we're doing a direct sequel to the first one, and then we're going to do the anthology type stuff. It's like, no. If you're going to do an anthology, you got to do it right away, because throwing this sequel in there is now training your audience to be like, okay, Halloween is this.
Yeah.
right? And that's not what you're intending to do. So that's where they fucked up.
Yeah, and that was
know.
always kind of my thing on it. So I do think there was a sense of like kind of desperation, speed writing, speed ideas that they had to develop to continue on the series. Because all of a sudden it's like, fuck, our plan was to do an anthology series, 5 movies that were different and whatnot. And we put out Halloween 3, which is an awesome movie. And everybody was pissed because they were like, because just like you said, like, wait, where's the guy? While I thought it was very cheeky and clever to stick him up in the TV when they're playing the Halloween movie on the TV in the bar, I thought that was cute and very cheeky. It definitely made things like trickier because then, again, it's Tom Atkins' movie. And that's what it was all about. It's all about Silver Shamrock, 13 days till Halloween. But exactly the backlash where they're like, shit, we want to continue on this series. Technically, we have 2 movies, I think at the time, contractually we have to film when it comes to this movie. And now everybody's this anthology, and now everybody's pissed. And now we have to figure out how to bring Michael Myers back into it. And I don't know off the top of my head, Devil, you might know off the top of your head, but I don't remember fully whether Jamie Lee was available or interested to be involved, or if she just wasn't going to be involved because they wanted to go the direction with Jamie now as the focal point. But I do think that one of the things that kind of hurt those movies, just for consistency wise to what the Fangs were expecting, is the fact that the backlash caused them to really have to pump out movies and grind it out quickly, which allows for weirdness and continuity errors and shit like that, just depending on how things kind of look.
I mean, yeah. I mean, especially when it comes to that. I mean, I know a lot of people talk shit on. I mean, even with the talk shit on to Halloween 2, but I always plead a case for Halloween 2 as being such a great movie just because it made Halloween 1 make more sense. Because people were like, don't even realize that's like, okay, everybody hated the whole fact that Jamie Lee Curtis was his brother and all that kind of family ties. But it kind of made more sense because it's just like, why would a guy roll into a town out of all the people that he's seen throughout that whole entire town, all of a sudden just goes after Jamie Lee Curtis's character? Where like throughout the whole entire town, there's so many people. There's other kids that were walking around for school. He could have targeted any person. The fact that he just targeted her and then targeted her friends to get at her made you think, why would he go for her? And then the explanation of why he went for her was the fact that he was and then that goes into furthering your cause with the druids and stuff like that and all those people playing in the background, is that's how he knew about her, because he probably got that information from these other people basically knowing, because like I said, he wouldn't have known. She was a baby when he killed the little, killed the sister when he was a kid. So it's like, yeah, like I said, that's what I said. I mean, it's just so much. I mean, like I said, I mean, there's so much about the Halloween series that like it's everybody's got this. That's what I like about them, because it's like you're definitely like you could see all of them so much different. And that's why we always respected Rob Zombie's Halloween, and even the Halloween 2 that everybody gets a lot of flack about it, because it's very artsy and very like more like kind of you have thinking man's horror movie where it's a lot of subliminal stuff. So I mean, like I said, I mean that all like I said, no one's gonna beat Halloween 1 though. I mean that's the epitome of everything.
It's just okay, absolutely.
Yeah,
I mean, Mrs. Finkel would have loved this conversation. That's her franchise is Halloween. She ride or dies for that.
Yeah.
So a fun little category for my own sheer greed of mine there, Mr. Nick. Let's talk a little bit about vampires. Tell me some of your favorite vampire movies, because people like myself want to know.
Okay. So like with Halloween being like the end all be all, there's your Bible for horror movies. The original Bela Lugosi Dracula.
Yes.
That's my number one. I think I own, and I don't know why. I have no idea why. I think I own 4 copies of it.
Yeah, I got like 5 or 6.
And
different
I
versions for
I
different
don't know
copies.
why. There was literally like we're organizing like the DVD shelf, and I'm like, alphabetizing. I'm like, okay, Dracula goes here. Wait a minute. Hold on a minute. Why do I have? Wait, where'd this one come from? I don't know why, but there's like 5 copies of it. One DVD and then like 4 different Blu-rays, and they're all the same thing.
Yeah.
And I don't understand why. It's like, oh, this is this collection and this is that collection. I'm like, yeah, but you read the bonus features. They all have the same things on it. They all include the Spanish version, behind the scenes documentary, and then all these bonus movies like, Dracula meets the Wolfman stuff. Like they're all on there. Why do I have 5 of these? So, and I have a graphic novel that is Bram Stoker's Dracula, but it's drawn to resemble Bela Lugosi.
Oh, nice.
It's really cool. It's really cool. And so that's my number one is the original Bela Lugosi Dracula. I have a soft spot for Dracula specific stuff. So I love Christopher Lee in the Hammer movies. I'll watch any interpretation of Dracula. They're not all great, but I will watch them all just to get a different take. Outside of that, like probably the first vampire movie I ever saw growing up was The Lost Boys.
Yeah.
So, and that was cool because it was very pop culture. It was very of the times, super 80s kind of thing. And I loved it, but it did so much great stuff with vampire lore.
Yeah.
And then another big, huge staple in vampire stuff for me is Interview with the Vampire. And, there's always a lot of debate on that film and Tom Cruise's casting specific, but I think it's perfect. I think it's an incredible, wonderful, accurate adaptation of the book. And I think the casting across the board was spot on perfect. I see no flaws in that. And yeah, there's differences between the book and the movie, but when you're taking a book and you're condensing it down to 2 hours, you got to trim some of the fat. And if it's one thing Anne Rice is good at, it's adding a lot of fat, because I don't need 14 pages describing the carpet in the room. So cutting some of that down and then making some of it a little more palatable for a general audience, I think is okay with certain things. I'm not for reinterpretations and changing a lot of the source material. I think things need to stay very, very, very faithful to source material. The one kind of exception I think you can get away with is when the author of said source material is the one making those changes. And in this case, Anne Rice wrote the screenplay for the movie, so it's still her words. So if she decides to make it Louis' wife died rather than Louis' brother died, that sends him over the edge. Well, fine. She's the artist. She's the one that came up with those characters in the first place. She's allowed to do that.
Yeah.
Right. And again, it's some of the changes in there were like, okay, you got a book that's this thick, you got to make it 2 hours. Go. Right. So it works. And I think as a interpretation of the original source material, it's the most accurate one we've had to date, and it's perfect and great. Right.
Yeah.
So
I love the fact that you use those particular words too, because Devil and the Fangs definitely know this. Is like the one thing that I really harp on, that I'm very, like, I guess for lack of a better term, kind of snobbish about, is vampiric lore. And those are the words that I use regularly to describe it. And Devil and I are both big Bela Lugosi fans. But yeah, whenever we're talking vampires on the various episodes, like, that is a very, it's a hot button for me. And again, I love interpretations. I respect directors and actors and actresses' takes on certain things, and I
Mhm.
don't mind. I don't mind, veering off the path a little bit, or maybe taking a chance, or doing something because you really feel like this kind of speaks to you as the writer or the director or the actor. But overall, I need the vampiric lore to stay mostly intact. I'm not going to split hairs over something that I can tell is a just unique take on something. But yeah, I need the lore to be proper, or at least as proper as possible.
Yeah, especially when it comes with the Interview with the Vampire, because like you take that movie and it's like you said, it's like one of the greatest, if not the greatest, adaptation from a book to a movie, and like you said, with her doing a lot of that and the changes and people being like that, that's what I like about with the television show, the Interview with the Vampire, and people were always bitching about it and stuff like that, but I love it. It's like, have you not read the source material? Like, because like even in the in the Interview with the Vampire with Tom Cruise and all them, they go into it a little bit, but I love how the TV show goes into the relationship between Louis and Lestat, where it's a lot more of that queer horror into it, where you show the relationship of them being together, and people are like, oh my god, I can't watch this because it's this and this, and then people bitching. I'm like, you've not read the book. I mean, they were lovers. I mean, that's
So yes
what they
and no.
were.
Yes and no.
I mean,
I'll
to
say
an extent. To an extent.
I tried to watch the show. I couldn't get more than 2 episodes in. They changed so much.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm yeah. As
They
much as far as
changed
I'm changing
so
stuff. Oh
much
yeah.
that it was a complete turn off for me. I don't like that. I don't like the change. If you are adapting something that already exists, then give me an adaptation of it. Give me that. One TV show that did it better than anything I've ever seen ever was The Last of Us.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. I have that video game. I've played that video game. My girlfriend played the game in real time along with the show. They got everything. 95% of the dialogue in the show was just lifted from the script in the game. The camera angles were exactly the same. The carpet in the room was exactly the same. Like details that weren't focused on at all. And we know this because we would literally play the game, watch an episode of TV, and then play the game up to that point. So we would match the show, and then would stop playing the game for a week until the next episode came out, so there would be no spoilers because she hadn't played the game, right? I got to see it in real time with the show, and that was the most painfully accurate adaptation I've ever seen of let's make a show or a movie out of something that already existed in another medium, like a book or a video game or something like that. That show was so perfect.
Oh yeah,
From
and
the
it's
game,
and
right?
it's definitely probably the best
And
adaptation of a video game in general, because most of them are usually shit.
it's hard to do adaptations of a game in general, but that was so unbelievably perfect. They took very, very, very few liberties on anything. And like I said, the dialogue was 95% exactly the same. The camera angles that the camera was moving at in the game were the same camera angles on the show. It was so incredible to watch, and I loved every second of it. Interview with the Vampire, shit on the source material entirely.
Yeah.
I reread those books. I reread the first 3 Vampire Chronicles last year just because I hadn't read them in years, right? I reread them. Then I watched the show. It's 95% different. They kept the characters' names and did nothing to keep them anything resembling that book.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm going to hard disagree with you on that. I couldn't get more than 2 episodes in. I have no desire to see anything else from that show ever.
Well, no, I was just not even. I wasn't even arguing for the show. I was just talking about Yeah, I was just talking about more of like that dynamic between Louis and that you were talking about like with source material, because in the book.
If you read the book, Louis despised Lestat from the very moment he became a vampire. They weren't having sex every fucking night, like they are on the TV show. They weren't lovers like that. Louis fucking hated him. Go reread the book. Louis fucking hated him from day one for
Well,
doing.
especially when you read like that, especially same thing with when you're with Vampire, with the Queen of the Damned. You know how much they took, the source material of,
They did
the Vampire Lestat and Queen of the Damned, mixed both those books together, but just took what pieces they wanted from each book and put it into that movie.
Well,
and I love the movie, but yeah, as far as like source material, it's
that's
like
another
oh my
movie
God.
that's just that one's kind of a guilty pleasure. I watched it a bunch of times. I do own it. The soundtrack was incredible.
Yeah.
But that was kind of the silver lining of it. That's another movie that like took such liberties with the source material and didn't do anything good with them. I don't disagree that like maybe combining the books, The Vampire Lestat and Queen of the Damned, into one movie, I don't disagree that that's not a good idea, because there is, again, you got to trim a lot of fat, and there is a lot of fat in those books. I can't tell you how many times Queen of the Damned is just a room full of vampires sitting around talking for 3 chapters. Like, a lot of like, we don't need this on screen. But they did so much different. You know what I mean? Let's change which vampire even made Lestat. Let's just not put Louis in it at all, even though he's in all of Queen of the Damned and the end of Interview. Let's take out, like, they did so much damage to that source material that you shouldn't even be able to call it Queen of the Damned. You shouldn't even be able to put it under the umbrella of an adaptation of Anne Rice's stuff. It's like the TV show. They changed so much. And it'd be different. It would be different if Anne Rice was the one who penned it the way she did with the first movie.
Yeah.
She had nothing to do with the sequel. She had nothing to do with this TV show. Her name shouldn't be even put on it. I think it's a disrespectful to her by even putting her name on it.
And then they have. I haven't even watched the Mayfair Witches yet, which is another.
I haven't, but I never read those books, so I really have no frame of reference. But knowing that is kind of the same production company and things like that as Interview, I would take a step in the dark and say it's as different from the novels as the Interview show is. So I haven't watched that mainly because I never read the books. I would want to start there first, but then I'd be afraid of getting upset if they changed everything that I liked. I don't know.
But yeah, speaking of like source material and stuff like that, because that's the hot topic right now of 2024, 2025. Have you seen Nosferatu yet?
No, I haven't actually.
Okay.
I've been getting mixed reviews on it.
Have you seen photos of the Nosferatu at least?
I did see photos of it, and I'll say this: I'm reserving judgment until I see the film.
Yeah.
There's sometimes you see some special effects or makeup and stuff like that, and you go, I don't know about this. But then there are times where, like, well, maybe it works on camera with the right lighting, the right setting, the right atmosphere, the tone. You know what I mean? I'm going to reserve judgment till I see the movie, but I've been hearing very mixed reactions. I know some people that loved it, said it's the best horror movie they've seen in years. I have other friends that said they walked out of the theater. Yeah. So it's two very polarizing opinions about it, but I don't have an opinion because I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah.
I'll get up on my soapbox, but I'll keep it very brief. So my take, and also it'll be spoiler free. So I really liked it. I thought it was great. For me, it was an 8 out of 10. For Mrs. Vamp, it was a 6 out of 10. But that movie is much more my style. I love Robert Eggers' work. I think he's got a amazing career ahead of him. Like, I'm very much into what he does and the way that he does it. I really liked the movie. I liked the way it was shot. I liked the style behind it. Personally, I was not a big fan of Lily Rose Depp's casting in the movie or her performance. I don't think she was bad. That's the one thing I always try to make really clear is I really don't think she had a bad performance. In my opinion, though, I think that she wasn't seasoned enough for that role. I think she needed a little bit more experience for that kind of a period piece. If I had it up to me, based off people that are, popular or working that style now, I would have loved to have seen Emma Stone in that role personally. Because while it was it's interesting to see where she came from Superbad and Easy A and all that stuff. The fact that she's won like 2, Oscars in the last like 3 years for like period pieces like Marie Antoinette made me really, really want to see her in that role. I just would have liked to have seen a slightly more seasoned actress when it came to that. Now, the elephant in the room, and of course the big, thought, everything that people have to say on the movie is the visual when it comes to Nosferatu. Look, I didn't hate it, but the one thing I've always said about it is when you specifically have an established look or something that has been a way for a very long time. Like I said before, I love and appreciate individual visions, thoughts, what people want to put out there and just their vision of a character. I'm all for it. I appreciate it. I get it. When you have a character, for example, like Nosferatu, that's now 103 years established as a specific look, bald, pointed ears, long fingers, which I thought they did great in the new Nosferatu movie. I really loved his hands. Rat fangs, so on and so forth. I really felt strongly that you have to stick to that because that's very much what people are expecting. And it's very much the only thing that people know. So that's kind of my big thing on that. But yeah, overall, I love the movie. Thought it was a solid 8. Definitely looking forward to the physical copies that are coming out so I can go back to watching it some more. But those are kind of my things. I would have loved a little bit of the change in the casting, and I wish they hadn't strayed quite so far off the look. But it didn't take away too much from my overall experience because I just think Robert is awesome.
Yeah,
that's cool. Yeah.
Just especially when it comes to like when you were talking about the vampires and the 80 vampires and like you said with Lost Boys and stuff like that, where probably other than like Bela Lugosi's Dracula, a lot of people put so much love and so much love in Lost Boys. I mean, me and Vamp are huge Lost Boys fanatics and stuff like that. The only movie that I feel, and I wanted to just get your take on it, is the movie that if you've seen it, that comes close to getting that Lost Boys, for at least for me and Vamp, is Near Dark.
Love it.
Near Dark's great. I like that one. It's been a long time since I've seen it, but yeah, I just love the you kind of had what Lost Boys was. It had that punk rock kind of like this. It had like this motorcycle rock and roll kind of we don't give a fuck attitude, and that's what I think that those type vampires is needed, and that kind of stuff. But vampire got a little bit of love, so now it's time for the devil to get a little bit of love. So let's see, what movies did you like that the devil's in? Exorcist is the best.
Yeah.
That's one that like I could sit and watch it at 3 a.m. in a house by myself, even though I know that it's gonna scare me to go in the bedroom and turn the light on. I will still torture myself and watch that movie. That's a tough one too, because man, there's a lot of good ones. You know what? And it's not really like a devil movie, but the devil is in it at one point. You know what I really, 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 really liked the interpretation of the devil for was The Witch.
Yeah.
How the whole movie they're like, something ain't right with that goat. Something ain't right with that goat. You know what I mean? And then at the end, you literally see the goat's feet walk in, and it becomes his boots. And you never see him, but he has her sign the book. And I'm like, the lore in there, signing the devil's book and things like that. I was just like, oh oh god, it's so good. You know,
Yeah. I mean,
it was that
yeah.
interpretation of the devil was done so good. You know, demonic possession movies. We talked earlier about that one where When Evil Lurks, or was it?
Yeah,
Is it
yeah.
When Evil Lurks or Where Evil Lurks?
I think it's when.
Yeah, that concept of like demonic possession kind of hops around and infests like a zombie plague would. That's cool. That's super cool. I liked that a lot. You know, uh, it's super over the top and very cheesy at times, but The Devil's Advocate is always one
Well, I
that's
mean,
home for me.
that's one of my favorite ones. I mean, Al
Love that movie.
Pacino plays like the
I mean, it's
perfect
perfect.
fucking devil, where he's just.
He's Al Pacino times 10 in that movie. And it's so good and it's so over the top and it's so ridiculous at times, and I love it. And that was one that, like, anytime it was on TV and I'd be flipping around the station, I'd stop and I'd watch it.
We didn't get to talk about this last year, and Devil and I were so bummed out because we left our 5 best of 24 movies to discuss for the Fangs and Infernos to vote on, and they didn't vote on this one. So we're still planning to like just
Okay.
talk about it at some point to put it out. But we loved Late Night with the Devil.
I liked it.
Yeah.
I liked it a lot, but I think it's a little overhyped.
Okay.
Everyone I know that's into horror movies and stuff like that were kind of putting that movie up on a huge pedestal. And I watched it. I enjoyed it. Like, I did like the movie. I'm not going to knock the movie in it for anything. I liked it a lot. But I do feel like it was put up on that pedestal because I don't know that we had too many other really great horror movies to compete with it. So I feel like some of the hype is almost a participation trophy of like, oh, we got one good one this year. Everyone go out and watch that one, because there wasn't much. I can't think of another movie that came out last year that I can also say is a great horror movie like that one, you know?
Yeah, the speed of what we reviewed based off the vote was, we talked about Abigail, we talked about Longlegs,
Didn't see it.
Terrifier 2, Terrifier 3,
Didn't see it.
the new Salem's Lot, that HBO Max put
Yeah,
out. Which one am I forgetting?
And then what else was
I don't know
it?
if I watched the new Salem's Lot or not.
Oh, the Smile 2.
Smile 2.
Yeah, I haven't seen. See, that's the thing is, I'm behind on a lot of these things too. So literally every movie you named, I haven't seen.
Yeah, you get a chance to definitely do Abigail and definitely do Longlegs, especially because Longlegs is such a like one of those like gems. You know what I mean? It's the same thing with me, like too. Like everybody's talking about, you know, with these hype movies. I was really, really big into X. I loved X. I was really big. Yeah, I like
X. It was okay.
Yeah, I loved the, you know, the second one, Pearl. Really loved it. I thought Maxine was a drop. It just wasn't. It wasn't I mean, it wasn't bad, but it wasn't that level of where we wanted to see.
X was okay, but it wasn't enough for me to care to watch any of the other sequels. I didn't watch Pearl, and it wasn't enough to be like, I want more of this. Let me see what they're doing next. You know, it was fine, but it was all right. You know,
I mean, it's definitely in those type of movies. Like I said, that's what I love about that, especially within the horror genre too. You know what I mean? You got these people who like, you know, will see a movie like Hostel or things like that and be like, oh no, that's too brutal, blah, 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 blah. You know, they can't get away with that kind of, you know, I love my old movies. They couldn't get, you know, you couldn't get away with doing that kind of stuff. And then you're like, wait, have you not seen fucking Brain Dead from the, you know, the 80s? I mean, Jesus Christ. I mean, the dude
Texas
fucking
Chainsaw.
Yeah, he's using a fucking lawnmower in a scene, mauling people for like 30 minutes. I mean, it's like, yeah, I mean, granted, graphically it looks a lot more realistic now than back then. But yeah, like you said, I mean, it's just funny. But as I said, I love it. That's what I mean. That's the cool thing about like the horror genre with it, was like, you know, versus like other people who are into like this kind of stuff and that kind of stuff. It's like, you can be so animate about a series, and then like someone go, oh man, I hate that series, man. That sucks. Like, let's say, like, you said Halloween is probably. You can have somebody go, Halloween 1 sucks, John Carpenter, blah 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 blah. You'll be
I've
like,
never
I
heard anyone say
disagree.
that.
And I've never heard anybody say that. I'm just saying somebody could say that. And the cool thing about horror nuts is like you're wrong, but I'm not gonna kick your ass for it. Although Halloween 1, someone might get their ass kicked for talking shit on
Well,
Halloween 1.
and I mean that's the fun thing about shows like yours and stuff like that is it's all a debate. It's all out of love. We all love horror. We all love these kinds of movies. We can sit and we can have friendly debates on them. We might not agree on you like this movie and I don't particularly like it, or vice versa. I love this movie to death and you're like that movie was terrible, or TV show or whatever it is. But that's the fun thing is like we can have those debates and we can get into the nitty gritty nerdy stuff about them, about what makes it great or where its pitfalls are or something like that. Because it's fun. It's fun to have these conversations, and it doesn't mean that like anybody's angry about anything. We're just having a good time.
Devil turned me on to a fun one like a year and a half ago. I'd seen actually the movie in a store, and I picked it up, kind of looked at it, and I was like, it looks kind of interesting. And I ended up putting it back. And then like 2 days later, he calls me and he's telling me about this movie he saw. And I should come over and watch it. And I was like, I think I just had that movie in my hand, which was called Becky. And I really liked that movie a lot. So I think that one would be a fun one for you, Nick. And I always describe it to people. Picture Home Alone if Kevin had just fucking snapped and murdered Harry and Lloyd.
Yeah, and if you're into, and what's his name, the guy from the King of Queens guys,
Kevin James.
If you're into him, but you don't want to see him in like how you would normally see him with his, whether some people think he's funny, some people will go and say that he's not that very comedic. This movie makes me love him because he's just the worst. He's like he's a villain that you wouldn't expect to be a good villain.
I don't think I've ever seen him play a villain before, so that's interesting. I'm gonna have to check that one out. You know what one you were actually talking about that movie and bringing up Kevin James? Just reminded me one that I watched a couple weeks ago is now I'm drawing a blank on the name. Oh my god, I'm gonna look this up because it's with the guy from Shaun of the Dead.
With Simon Pegg?
No.
The one where he's like a cab driver or something like that?
No. So it's a family vacation. I can't talk about it too much without spoiling it. So I'm going to try really hard. It's basically the setup is he's got his family and they're going on vacation to this island that has a pretty tragic history.
Oh, yeah.
And they're being constantly warned, like, you're not going to be welcome on the island, don't go, kind of thing. And it's called Get Away.
Yeah. I think I did see. So I haven't seen it yet.
2024. It's called Get Away, and it's not as slapsticky funny as you would think that like a Shaun of the Dead or something like that is, but it is still funny. It's got its horror elements, it's got its gore. It's not a scary movie, it's a fun horror movie. And I don't want to give too much away, but I finished watching that movie with a smile on my face from ear to ear going, oh my God, that was so good. That was so much fun.
There was another one that came out not that long ago that I don't think we've talked about on the show, but I've done it before. It's got the guy from Vampire True Blood in it, but it's called Glorious, where it's basically like a space alien movie that's sort of like a glory hole kind of horror film.
Oh boy. Oh boy. I can see where you're going with it. That one will be fun. Yeah, I do like fun horror movies too occasionally. There's one that came out a few years back, super low budget, flew under the radar, and I couldn't tell people enough about watching this movie. It was called Slacks.
Yeah.
Have you seen it?
That one was really good. That the final girls, that one was really, really
so
good.
It was so good. Slacks was so good, and it was for the type of dumb movie it was. It should not have been as well made as it was. You think like a lot of these super cheesy, dumb, low budget movies like Zombievers and Wolf Cop and like Sharknado, all these ones. I love those kinds of things too. And like Slacks was so surprisingly well made, but it was one of those super schlocky, ridiculous movies that just makes you laugh.
Oh, dude, then I might know where you're going, because I was like the exact same thing. I was like, oh, dude, then if you like Slacks, if you like a movie like that that's like kind of like slapsticky and low budget, but is so well written and well made, dude, Devil, tell them about the movie that you and I become such an advocator for.
Yeah. So we did an interview with a friend of ours at a convention. Chris, I don't remember what his last name is, but he's in a movie called Crackoon.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, it's basically like, exactly like what you would think. Cocaine Bear.
Does it all.
But it's glorious. It's up there with like Sharknado, where it's so stupid and so over the top cheesy. And then sometimes you can tell that the raccoon is a guy's hand and a puppet, but it's still the greatest thing you'll ever see.
That's what I want.
Chris O'Brockie.
Yeah, Brocky. Yeah.
Chris O'Brockie, because he was actually promoting a movie he had just done called Shriek Show, and we did an interview specifically about that. And then he came out with Crackoon, actually just won an award for it, and so he wants to come on the show to talk about that. So he's super hype about it. But Devil, there's also another one that I want to bring up, because you and I, based off of another interview that we got to do with Sean, which was awesome. Nick, I really want you to check out this movie, if you're familiar, which I know you are, with People Under the Stairs. And remember Roach, played by Sean Whalen. Sean did his writing and directorial debut of a low budget movie of his, like his heart kind of pet project called Crust. It's so fun, dude. It's basically, if you like, like the Kevin, like, I always mispronounce his last name, but it's like Helen Brogan or whatever. Anyway, the guy who did like Frankenhooker and Basket Case, because I'm a huge nerd for those movies. You would love Crust if you like Basket Case. It's basically about this former child star who's now living as a recluse, and he becomes best friends with a pile of dirty socks that come to life and become like his like best friend / like kind of protector. And that's amazing. Awesome. It's black and white. It's like Basket Case meets Clerks.
I'm in. Sign me up. I'm such the right demographic for that dumb shit. I actually got to be in one of these stupid movies too, but like you see my elbow. Did you ever see the movie Dead Ant?
Yes.
Yeah.
About the rock band that goes out to and they accidentally unleash the giant ants. So at the end of the movie, when they finally make it to the big, festival that they're supposed to play, right? The Coachella knockoff festival. There's a band that's on stage playing when they arrive, and I'm actually the drummer on stage.
I was gonna ask you about that too, because we've talked to a lot of musicians. We've talked to like Dietrich Thrall from Lords of Acid and a bunch of stuff, and he's really been getting into doing a lot of horror movies and cameos and doing that kind of stuff. Is that something you're interested in doing? Pursuing the kind of the acting style, maybe?
I don't pursue it, but if an opportunity comes my way, I tend to do it. Like I'm not out there looking for movies and acting gigs and stuff like that. That's not what I do. But if an opportunity comes my way, kind of thing, I'll take a look. Like. With Dead Ant, that was literally like a buddy called me up and was like, "Hey, I got cast in this movie. The scene involves a band, and they're letting me kind of assemble the band for the film kind of thing. Do you want to be the drummer in the movie?" And I said, "Sure." And knowing full well that it's background stuff, I had to learn one song, and then we just played it take after take after take after take. like a music video would, and we had scenes where we had to like, they're like, okay, look over there, pretend there's giant ants crawling over that mountain. And when we yell action, you notice the ants, you freak out and you run. So I had to like get up from behind the drums and run off stage in terror, kind of thing. So it was easy. It was a fun day. It was supposed to be 2 days of shooting. The second day, they wanted the band to come back and film scenes where we all get killed. But like call time was like 5 a.m, and I didn't want to do that 2 days in a row. So I actually skipped the second day. And then when I watched the movie, like all of those scenes got cut anyway. They don't show the band getting killed at all. So I was like, well, then it wouldn't have mattered if I was there or not. Yeah, I've done some other small ones here and there like that where, if you watch the end credits of Bill and Ted Face the Music, I'm playing drums during the end credits of the movie. I've done little things on TV shows and stuff like that. It's always drumming. I'm always behind the drums, no matter what I'm doing. I'm not like reciting lines and acting. I'm always playing the drums in the background somewhere. But yeah, I don't go after those jobs. But if someone calls me up and says, "Hey man, I got a thing, you want to do it?" Yeah, I'll go do it.
Yeah. So basically what you're saying is there's somebody out there, if they're watching this and they're writing horror movies and directing horror movies, they need to make a movie about a guy who's a drummer who just happens to be dead, but also has to be living, and call it Living Dead Drummer. You'd be perfect for it.
There you go. Yeah, they could write it just for me.
And one other thing, fun thing to ask you, Nick, real quick is, because this has recently been announced, and we love our slapsticky fun stuff, and myself and Devil are big Full Moon and Troma nerds. Did you see that they're finally going to be putting this remake new Toxic Avenger in theaters in August?
I heard about it. Yeah, I like the original, of course. I did a Troma movie too at one point.
I think everybody's done it.
Again, I'm playing, I'm playing drums. It wasn't like I'm not acting in it, but one of my bands did a music video companion to one of their films, kind of thing. Which is cool because Lloyd Kaufman was in our music video and everything like that. So, and I get killed in the music video. I get killed on behind the drumstick through the head. But I did see that they're doing a new Toxic Avenger. I'm equally parts protective of like, it's my original. Don't, it's a classic. It's called classic. Don't mess with it. But also, I would kind of like, it's been 30 something years. I'd kind of like to see what they could do now with, modern special effects and stuff like that. Yeah. As long as they keep them practical. I'm not a fan of CGI, but as long as they keep the effects practical, yeah, there's been some progress in the last 30 plus years in blood splatter and, prosthetics.
I'm definitely with you on that, my friend, because we love our Troma. I'm a big Toxic Avenger nerd myself. But Nick, man, first and foremost, man, we can't thank you enough for coming on the show and rocking out with us and talking horror, talking music, and just having a good old time. The thing that's most important to myself and the Devil is that, you enjoyed yourself, you had a good time, you felt respected, and you enjoyed the questions that were asked.
Yeah, man, I had a great time. This was fun. I enjoyed doing it. I'll do it anytime you guys want. It was a blast. I love talking about this stuff.
Hell yeah, man. Absolutely, man. I think it's safe to say that with the exception of Chris, because we had already talked to him, you're definitely going to be a repeat guest very quick, because we definitely want to talk to you more about everything. And, of course, continue to the support that you're doing with, all of your musical endeavors, man. Your family, you've been family for a long time, and we really do appreciate you.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate that.
Absolutely, man, for sure. Fangs, Infernos, Ghouls, Goblins, and everything creepy. We appreciate you guys. As always, we want to give a lot of love and support to our sponsors and partners of the Vampire and Devil podcast. Thank you for everything they do, and thank you for supporting them as well. We appreciate you guys. We're going to sign off on this creepy conversation, but we got more in store for you. He is the Devil. I'm the Vampire. But more importantly than all of that, he is the Living Dead Drummer. Horns up. Fangs out.